Today we're using the Beretta 1301 semi-automatic shotgun, and you can see that it cycled perfectly fine. Now at this angle it is a little difficult to see how far the sparks actually flew. I would estimate maybe 100 yards at the most. Let's try a little different angle. Now I realize a lot of viewers are going to be upset we didn't film this at night, but being able to see the background, you can get a pretty good scale of how far these things are traveling. In fact, it traveled a lot further than I anticipated it to travel. This one probably went over 500 feet. This was shot at a 30-degree angle. The velocity I would guess would be around 1,300 feet per second. This is pretty similar to the ballistics of a Foster slug. If you shot it at the same angle, it loses its forward momentum quite rapidly and eventually almost falls vertically back to earth. The furthest we could get a Foster slug to travel was about 450 yards. On this shot, we didn't get quite the distance we did in the two previous ones. This one maybe went 100 yards at the most. It still managed to set some weeds on fire on the bottom of the riverbed there. It just rained a few days ago and everything was green and lush looking, but still, you gotta use extreme caution when using something like this.
There we go. Whoa! Wow. Not sure what that did, but it went past him. Oh, wow.
Could these be the perfect home defense round? You decide. But in all seriousness, these things were kind of terrifying because it just spewed sparks everywhere. And it caught things on fire that we never thought would catch on fire. Today we're going to test a 12-gauge projectile prototype aerodynamics. I think every slug should have a really cool name that you can remember. We're going to call this the Black Scarab because it kind of looks like a scarab, right? The slug is made out of pot metal, believe it or not, and is chemically blued to give it that nice deep black color. Typically a 12-gauge slug weighs 1 ounce, but these are some pretty hefty boys, coming in at 36 grams, 1.28 ounces, or 558 grains. Pick your unit. Now the basic shape of this I would call the elongated Diablo shape. It's that wasp-waisted pellet rifle shape. Evan's design is completely solid. There's no hollow skirt at all. The Diablo shape is really interesting because it doesn't need spin to fly straight through the air. And we're not just talking about subsonic velocities, we're talking about pretty high velocities of over 1,000 miles per hour. That's over Mach 1.33. We'll use 35 grains of long shot, an FS12 gas seal, and we'll have plenty of room in this 2 3/4 inch hull. For these tests, we'll be using a 4-pedal sabot system. The Black Scarab is 68 caliber, and the sabots fill that space and keep the projectile centered in the barrel. And they also protect the barrel from metal-to-metal contact.
there it is, the Black Scarab.
And here's what's weird. I saw that on camera when I was reviewing it. The gas seal didn't come off of it. See, there's not much holding it on there, but the gas seal stayed attached for some reason.
Put it out there so you can feel it.
Now if you look close, you can see the cone-shaped shockwave of the slug. Now the slug will kind of bounce around a little bit in that shockwave. That's why you see it bobbing around, but it is self-correcting. And the accuracy overall wasn't too bad, especially for a guy that never shot a 12-gauge slug before. This shows you how violent an impact on a Kevlar vest is when hit with a large projectile. The Kevlar vest kind of poked through the t-shirt like it was made out of tissue. Next we'll take a look at why the gas seal didn't release from the slug. We could see that the base of the slug not only compressed, but it also expanded to the same size as the bore. This is called obtuation, and I didn't expect it to occur with this harder metal. This happens almost instantly when the shell is fired, and it gives you an idea just how much force is being applied to the slug when it's fired. In this shot, the gas seal did release, so we know that the slug flies pretty well on its own. But boy, I kind of sucked at getting the focus right on this one, but you still get an idea how the slug flew.
See that it's hitting low and to the left, pretty similar to what happened to Doug. So we're having a little bit of consistency. I don't know if that's a fluke or that's actually me.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
But it dug in there pretty deep. It destroyed the black scarab in the process. And if you want to take a look at the back,
Ooh, okay.
I can't stick my finger through it, but it's got a pretty good impact there.
A little spalling going on there.
Yes,
That's the
almost
spalling is, and all the tank world of tank people know what spalling is.
Yeah.
The gun people don't know what spalling is. Spalling is when you get debris flaking off the back of a piece of armor or lead plate in this example.
I thought it was the company that made tennis balls.
Oh!
Got it.
Well, the gas seal, just like in shot 1, again stuck to the base of the slug. But it sure looks like Jeff has figured out where to hold the point of aim on these things. After analyzing the first 2 shots, we decided to finally make an adjustment to the aim, and it seemed to pay off this time. Jeff will explain more in a second. Using full rifling this time, the slug looks completely different in flight. In the shots with the smoothbore, the slug looks pretty awkward with the supersonic waggle, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's less accurate. The tail kind of pivots around, but the nose is essentially flying straight still. Now, Jeff didn't have to make any corrections in his aim on this shot. It was pretty much close to point of impact on this shot. Alright, Jeff is still using the rifle shotgun with the iron sights, and he did really well. Nice centered shot there, it looks like. Now, I'm sure you saw that very large temporary wound cavity extending almost the entire length of that 16-inch block. Now, I've been kicking around the idea of like wrapping the ballistic gel with duct tape or baling wire or sticking inside of a pant leg to show how much force there is when that block of gel expands. And